Hi, all, it's James. Before we get into this episode, I just want to give a disclaimer. This podcast is with Matt Maybeno, my good old friend from college. We get really deep into artificial intelligence and machine learning, things that Matt is very knowledgeable about. And so Dan and I, we pick his brain about, hey, what are these large language models? How does artificial intelligence, machine learning work? What's the difference between them? This was recorded in the first half of 2025, so a lot has changed. I know Matt, when he had a listen and reviewed the episode, he was like, James, so much has changed since we spoke. But I believe that there's a lot of relevant information that is still true to this day, as far as like the base knowledge about what are these new technologies, and also the existential thoughts and risks and benefits that you can kind of glean from these new technologies and utilize. So what are some of the best use cases? What are some of the risks that you need to be aware of? That's still true today. Let's go ahead and enjoy this episode with Matthew Maybeno about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the existential risks and benefits. Welcome back to Yin and Yang, the podcast. I'm here with Matt Maybeno, my roommate from UC San Diego, and now he works in the field of AI and machine learning. Yay!
Hey, so right off the bat,
yeah, sure.
Right off the bat, are you programming it? Like, it looked like some of the notes were like machine learning. You're working on that. I know that a lot of large language models out there, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., Grok, but which part are you using? Are you using it as like the end user for your company?
Yeah, there's a long history of that, but the short answer, as of right now, like those models are so good that there's really, specifically in my space, which is a lot of the marketing space, it would be very hard for us to train our own models. These models are so good that what we have is we have a lot of data, and we can just leverage those models to kind of empower the applications that we're looking for. So we are kind of an end user. We haven't gotten to the point where like we're thinking, hey, we have a specific use case that we would want to like fine tune these models,
Right.
because we can. There's a long list of discussion about, do you fine tune these models, or do you just use those models and then have just a bunch of context? Because these models, what they can do is you can train them using your own special data, or you can just say like, hey, I have a bunch of information that I'm going to send into that when I'm asking it a question. And that is sometimes better than training it yourself. So there's a long kind of debate about that. But we've done a lot of back and forth and testing, and we're just right now just using it kind of ad hoc as it is.
Is there one that you go ahead? Sorry.
Oh, so yeah. I'm going to kind of answer your question as you're kind of saying. You're probably asking which models do we usually use more?
Yeah.
OpenAI had a front run lead in that space. So what we would do is we started using them like right away, because that was the kind of the leading edge of that. Now there are a lot of different options, but we also have to think of specifically the enterprise space, like what actually works best.
Yeah.
So OpenAI works well, and we also use Gemini models as well. So from Google, because we already have a relationship. So kind of getting into the nitty gritty of it, but with an enterprise, you can't sometimes just pick up a model and use it. Specifically, if you have clients like our end user clients that are large, kind of big brand things, you have to go through all of these different regulations and making sure that the company that we're using is safe. And so if we already have a relationship with them, it's very easy to then just use those models. If it's something like Grok, we'd have to go set up a relationship, go through legal, get all these contracts going. And so that becomes like a blocker for us when we're engineers, where we just want to go quick.
Out of curiosity, out of your own curiosity, maybe, have you tried the other LLMs? Like, I know obviously there's Grok, but there's DeepSeek. I haven't tried Microsoft's Copilot, and it's getting integrated with my work, with Outlook and all the other Microsoft Office applications, but I haven't tried Copilot itself. In my own experience, I felt like DeepSeek had more of an opinion, which is actually kind of cool. Copilot, or not Copilot, but OpenAI was a little bit more politically correct, just didn't want to offend anyone,
Right,
and
very
it just like gives
neutral.
you, yeah. And even my own company, we have like a version of OpenAI that's a little sealed off from the internet because they want to make sure that they're protecting clients' information if we were to use it. And they encourage us to use it all the time. So have you like looked at other open large language model ones and you're like, oh, that one might be better, but because of the legalities, if you will, that you were explaining that in the relationships, but out of your own personal curiosity, have you tried the other ones?
I have. So there's a lot of, I think, so as an engineer, quote unquote engineer, we will kind of test things internally
Mm-hmm.
and see if and there is a lot of good models that are out there. But the other crazy thing is you say like, oh, this is a really good model, we should use it, we should deploy it and start using it. Well, in the next month, there's going to be another version of some other
Right.
model, and then so it's like, well, do we then just switch again, or do we kind of stick with this other model and then start developing and kind of think about the specific use cases and the specific nuances of working with that model, or do we want to just stick with ones that we kind of have like OpenAI and Gemini? They come up with new versions all the time, but
Right.
you still have a good understanding of kind of the cadence and like the quirks of what each of those models can do and what they are and work around them.
Mm.
So I've used like on my local machine, you can use models locally if you have like a MacBook Pro with any of like the M series models. You can
Right.
use I think it's called Open Llama, and you can download. There's smaller models and you can play with them and try them out. And if you have a GPU, then obviously you can use bigger models. But yeah, I mean, we use them all the time, play around with them, see what they are. But the it's so cheap now too, just to kind of check and just try things out that
Yeah.
yeah, we test things. But yeah, there's nothing that specifically say like it is 50% better than
Mm.
Right.
what you're currently using. And I think that's where it's getting now. We're getting to a point where it's getting so good that the increase is ever so slight, where
Oh,
it almost doesn't
incremental.
justify, yeah, justify the change, like the abrupt change of switching out models.
So I have two questions, two follow-up questions. Um, as far as hallucinations are concerned, have you come
Oh,
across hallucinations?
Have we come up with what?
hallucin.
Hallucinations where,
Oh,
um,
all the time. Yeah.
oh, you do? How can you tell? It's like, I mean, some of the things like I ask things that I don't even have no idea about, so I wouldn't even know if it's a hallucination or not.
Right. For our listeners,
Yeah.
hallucinations are like when the AI model like makes up shit, like makes up stuff. It's
Right.
like, oh yeah, Antarctica is made of penguin piss. There's a bunch of penguin piss in Antarctica or something like that. And then you research it on Google. It's like, wait, that's not right. So, anyways, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
And
experience, Matt? Yeah.
the experience with us as users of the model, the hallucinations are actually kind of very easy to spot because we are in the marketing space. So, like a background from the business that Soshi, which is the company that I work at, they are a large SaaS platform that works with like franchisees or large businesses that they can hook in, connect all of their social networks or reputation. So, like your Google My Business, so like your Google business and like all the reviews. So we've like, put all that information into our platform, and then either the small local business owner who owns a franchise of, say, like some sandwich shop, they can manage that themselves and become like their own marketing specialist, or it can be the
Mm,
large corporate entity saying like, hey, I want to manage all of our locations, the message that goes out to like thousands of locations all at the same time on social media from all the different social networks, can
mm,
control that and have a very direct kind of like social network thing. So when we're testing it, so LLMs work really well because it helps kind of build out messaging or responding to reviews or things like that. And when we're doing testing, so testing is a very large part of what we do, making sure that the things that are generated are right. So we would kind of look at like, hey, like they're saying X, Y, and Z, like they're saying that this hardware store has um, a sandwich shop. Like, no, it doesn't. Like there, sometimes it will hallucinate, not to the degree, but they'll make hallucinations
mm.
saying something that is just not true of that business. So we have like what's the actual truth and what that someone whatever it will say, and we'll know like, okay, it doesn't actually do that.
Okay.
Other examples are like it'll say like, oh, this property has a pool. Like, no, this property doesn't actually have a pool. But we're talking about summer, and it just kind of hallucinates into talking about pools because summer and pools kind of go together.
Yeah.
And the model will just generate like something about a summer, and it'll just say like, oh yeah, pool. You're like, oh well, this
That's
property doesn't have a pool, so
that's funny because I sometimes do that in regular conversation.
yeah, right. It makes these assumptions that when you in making when you use these models, what you're trying to do is say like, hey, this is the information that I'm going to give you, and then it creates something from that. And the problem is that it'll make assumptions, and those assumptions don't always fit the reality, and that's basically why you have those hallucinations.
I think I saw like an article somewhere saying that hallucinations were on the rise for
Oh,
these
Hmm.
interesting.
LLMs. And I was wondering if, I mean, I don't even know how to curtail those hallucinations, right? Or do you just like say, hey, that is incorrect? You actually tell the LLM because of the conversation with them. It's like, hey, that's not correct. You got to like really check your
Because
resources or
I
something
know,
like that.
yeah, I know for GPT can give a thumbs up or thumbs down on the response. I'm guessing that's the user feedback, or
But you can actually tell it. You go, that's incorrect.
that's
And then,
incorrect, and they're like, "Oh, here, I'll tell Sam Altman," like,
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
Matt.
Well, and I think that's part of the difficulty is where you get that feedback from. So, using ChatGPT, you have those thumb up, thumb down, or you can just have this conversation with us. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create something what they call like zero shot. So like you give it a bunch of information and then they try to give you the correct answer right off the bat, like the first
uh,
attempt. We're trying to get the right answer. And
mm,
so we want to encapsulate all the complexity of having a conversation with the large language model for our end users so they can just say like, hey, we give them the results and then they can just kind of go with it. So we have to kind of make it right the first time. So if we don't, we have to, yeah, provide some feedback, like a thumbs up, thumbs down. But we've had cases where our customers have gone to our product managers. We have product managers, and say like, "Hey, like we noticed X, Y, and Z is not right," or something like
right.
that. And so the engineers try to address that. We have data sets where we kind of collect data sets where we know what the right answer is, and we try to make sure that if we update the model or if we change something, we can then validate that nothing has changed too drastically or if it's gotten better. The problem is also a lot of this is all subjective. Like language is very subjective. There is
Mm,
a correct, but then there's also a whole wide variety of what is correct. And so you might think it's good. So we've had something where we'll say like, "Oh, this is great," and then we'll show it to our customers and like, we don't like this." And it's
uh,
like, well, technically they're the same thing. They're right, but it's subjective that they don't actually like it. And so then we have to kind of go back to the drawing board and fix it. So um, yeah, it's just a much more complex, I think, than a lot of people realize when you start actually using it, and then you see it kind of like in the everyday everyday field. So
Are there training programs within your company to how to use these large language models?
yeah, the our engineers are mostly just straight engineers, right? And so
Yeah.
one of the interesting things with this is anyone can use it. So not just, we're building tools using it, but then we use, you were saying Copilot, which I think is a different, but we use GitHub Copilot. So which is like a coding assist
Hmm.
tool within our thing to help. And so we're trying to get more engineers to use that because it really kind of scales up their development and
Right.
how they work out. So it was a it was hard. What has it been like almost 2 years now when it first started coming out?
Hmm.
And so it was
mm,
myself and maybe a couple other people were really trying to push it in and get people trained. And now I think because it's so pervasive outside and so many people you can just pick up, a large language model and start using it, that most engineers now have some kind of experience with it, even if it's outside of work, they've been using it. But we have training, a little bit of training inside, but we have like kind of dedicated core teams where we bring everyone in, we really train them and get them familiar with using it and leveraging these tools. And then what we'll kind of have that do is we'll have those teams kind of like break up and kind of like introduce other people to kind of help train them. So most of the times, it's been a couple of years, but most of our engineers know how to use like large language models
Right.
to some degree, but there's still those nuances, which is like kind of what I was saying, like how the biggest thing still is like prompting. So like, what do you
Right.
say? Like you can create a prompt and it could work okay, but then when you trying to address thousands or millions of different pieces of information throughout the thing, you're going to get some kind of oddities. And so going back
Hmm.
and making sure that those are good and the little tricks of making sure that those oddities are reduced is kind of the more fine-tuning aspect of, we're not fine-tuning the models, but we're fine-tuning the prompts and the information that goes in to kind of generate those outputs.
Hmm.
That makes
Do you
sense.
like when you train like on a certain client, do you just type everything up in a word and just like copy and paste and just like put into the prompt and because I know in one of the trainings I went to, somebody said like we can think about what the next 5 year strategy is for this company, and then you just upload it and just ask it for acknowledgement that they understand, and then the next prompt would be like, hey, what how would we weave in AI into this into our 5 year strategy, and then the large language model would spit out what it should be, the focus or the whole plan, from A to Z. Is that how your company does it? I don't want to be too proprietary, get into too proprietary stuff, but
Yeah.
with engineers, I know that they could change things on a more fundamental level with coding. Uh, but I don't know. I know that some companies will start doing it that way, where they just like throw in a bunch of information, copy and paste it in to have the large language model understand what their objective is in the future, and then go from there.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's pluses and minuses to that. So the models themselves have gotten really good. So kind of give you a little more context. So like the models, what we'll have is they'll have a set of tokens or a set of words that you can put into the model initially. Put it into the model. The model will think about whatever it's going, and then it will output a set of words. And so there are limits from the inputs, and there's limits from the outputs. The limits from the inputs that you're putting in the model have gotten bigger and bigger, which means you can put more and more information into the model. And then the outputs have gotten a little bigger, but they're not nearly as important for most applications because you don't need to like create an entire novel all at once, right?
Right.
A lot of what you really want to do is like I want to provide, like you said, like a 5 year summary or several books of information into the very beginning and just to ask it a question. And so like Gemini models, I think a lot of the OpenAI models now, probably much more that have these things called like 1 million token context or 2 million tokens. So tokens are not necessarily words, but we'll just, for ease of use, we'll say like a million words, right? So you can
Right.
put a million words into the model just to ask it a question.
Hmm.
Um, you can do that. There's trade-offs that you have to do when you do that. One is when you put that much information, it can take a while for it to spit out an answer. Also, when you give that much information, it sometimes becomes hard to follow instructions. So if you're asking a certain instruction, it may not actually follow everything that you're giving it.
Right.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, and it's gotten much better at it, it may not know all of the information that you are putting in. So that they would do these tests called like needle in the haystack. So it would basically fill up the entire input space of information, and then it would
Yeah.
ask little bits of information about, in the middle of the document or at the end of the document, or they would ask little bits. And so it was called like a needle in the haystack because they would want to see like how well could it answer a question throughout all of that. Um, and that's gotten much better at doing that. So that, I guess, to go back and to answer your question, hopefully I'm going to answer your question, but um, it can do those things, but there are trade-offs that all come about that. And so there's little tricks and things that you can do with answering that. But even then, I always have to go and like remind people that the way that these models are trained, they're trained to answer a question to make it sound plausible all the time. So anytime they answer a question, it's supposed to make it sound plausible. So even though it might give you a 5 year plan about how to incorporate AI, it may not be the best plan, but it'll give
Hmm.
you a
Right.
plan. It just may not be the best plan.
Right.
So you always have to think about that as well. So like it gives you a good outline, but you probably still want to go back and discuss it or talk to the AI about it and have it update it. But
Okay.
it's just something to always think about too. It's like it'll give you, that's just the way it's been trained. It's been
Right.
trained to give you always a plausible answer, whether or not it's actual true or if it's the best answer.
Hmm.
I guess
Give
that's
me a,
true with anything, right? Like everyone's worried about having AI replace people overall, but in the end, someone has to enter the prompts and be good at learning how to enter the right prompts, but then they have to be versed enough in the subject to understand what is good and what is bad, and like redo it in any way, or review the prompts and redo the prompts.
Right.
So
Yeah. And that's where you see a lot of like, and it's a very big buzz. It's a kind of a buzzword that I cringe when people talk about it, but it's like the whole vibe coding or vibe this or vibe that, where it's just they don't care about what's the output. They're just making it work.
yeah,
And
Mm.
so that's become a big thing. And then you see like kind of the output, which is like, oh, it actually wasn't that great, or there was all these problems, or what have you. So you do have to be kind of an expert of in making sure that whatever is coming out of it is good.
right.
Give me a second. I think someone's knocking on my door. Hold on one second.
Okay, I'm gonna cough.
Go for it.
Okay. No, it's just a hallucination. Sorry. Yeah. um, cool. I'm back. Cool. Yeah. So, Dan, sorry. Go ahead. Did you want to go down this path some more, or?
No, no, no. I think um I'm gonna probably switch gears, and like outside of work, when people approach you about AI, friends or family or whatever, or colleagues or former colleagues about AI or the use of AI, and some people like are unsure of adopting it. Some people like, hey, what are your thoughts? For me, someone asked me recently, like, hey, what do you think about AI? I was like, I think it's great. And they go, really? And we haven't really talked. It was just a short text. But when people approach you, your friends, your colleagues, or whatever, what is your response to that? I mean, it must be positive because you're using it all the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think and I continue to be surprised and impressed is like every day, like in like I was mentioning before, the models come out, new models will come out every month or every couple months. And yes, like some of the improvements are kind of incremental and not that great, but then there's other things where it just will kind of like blow you mind, like some of the video generation or
Mm.
the voice generation, conversing with people and it just sounds so lifelike. Um, it's really strange, but it's I always just I think the best part that I always tell people, especially, and I'm sure you're using ChatGPT or whatever model that you're having these questions where it's like you can just ask it anything and it will give you information, and it's like you just like what the school saying, there's no question
Yeah.
is dumb, or there's no dumb question. So it's like you don't feel like hindered to ask these dumb questions to these things, and you will get some information back. And I think it's hopefully useful. And I think, yeah, it's an interesting, I mean, I still think it as a tool, right? I don't think it's necessarily going to, I think it's a tool, and it's something that can like leverage what you do day to day better. I mean, that's kind of what I try to tell people, right? So they say like,
Right.
oh, can it help me do this? And I say, yeah, like, I mean, at least try it, like try it and see if it works. And if it doesn't,
Right.
then okay, then it's not there yet. But if it helps
Right.
you do something faster or better, then you should at least try it. You should become familiar with it because it's just going to get better and better.
I had a
Yeah.
friend said, like, I don't want to use it because I think about Terminator and Skynet. I was like, are you...
I mean, yes, I have friends who are, slightly on the paranoid side. Um, yeah, I mean, I mean, a valid concern, but I don't think it's near that point yet.
Yeah.
I what's ridiculous is like those people might be on Instagram or whatever, which I think is a much more invasive and more Big Brother-ish, because I know that whenever I search something on Google, then if I look at Instagram, the ads start like
Yeah.
being tailored to whatever I just searched for. And I get really peeved about that because, now I'm going to switch to my browser to like Brave or something like
Brave or
that.
something. Yeah. I remember I was like,
DuckDuckGo.
because like I had a friend who was like super paranoid that like his phone was listening to him. So it's like, hey James, let's talk about baby carriages. I want to test something. I'm like, why? You have a baby? He's like, no, I just want to test if it's going to show me baby carriage like baby stroller ads. So we started talking about baby strollers for like a few minutes. And then he went to check his Instagram, and there was no baby strollers then, I think. But anyways, but no, social media is kind of is another, I guess, another. It's using AI already. It's like a lot of things
Yeah,
people are not even things that they're like, oh, I'm fine with using Instagram, but I don't want to touch AI. It doesn't make sense because everything it's infused into like almost every aspect of our society almost now in just these last few years, which is kind of crazy. Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
Yeah.
tried the Meta AI?
Like Facebook
I
AI.
Yeah,
I
the
have
new one that
not.
just came out. I have I mean I've used Meta AI within Instagram, but I haven't tried their dedicated app. I downloaded it because I was kind of curious, and I have some friends that work there, so I was like kind of curious of what it has. It's very interesting. They're trying to incorporate the social aspect of like
Hmm.
giving people ideas of what to create with AI. So there's like a social feed, and I thought that
Oh,
was
Right.
really?
interesting. Yeah,
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, I kind of want to get so like let's find out a little bit more about you. So you're from Hemet, from
I'm from
California,
Hemet,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
Southern
I
California.
mean,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So Hemet, California, near Temecula. I visited before, and kind of like your background, like growing up, were you always interested in like robotics or science fiction or like because I know when we met in college you were there for like a biology or bioinformatics or something, I believe, right? So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And then I
I
know
would.
you did some switching, like you're kind of like trying out different classes when we were in college. But like, yeah, kind of give us a little bit of background about yourself growing up, and then how you kind of found yourself like, from starting in different fields, working in bioinformatics, and then now to like using AI in marketing. Yeah.
So my childhood was interesting. I was probably like your typical suburb 80s, 90s family, right? So, um, whatever family in the small little town, parents get divorced, you have just kind of like a mix of different people and things like that. Just a very, I mean, I guess I don't know. It's probably very traditional. But when I was in high school, I took some coding classes. I thought they were fun, but like my parents were not very technical, so I never really had a support system to kind of say like, hey, yeah, you should kind of like support that. Like, oh yeah, that's fun. Like, but there was nothing really to kind of support that. So I was like, oh, this is a fun thing, but like, I don't think I could ever. I thought just like programming was like, oh, I'm going to make video games. Like, oh, I don't want to make video games. I like playing video games, but I'm not going to make
Mm,
video games.
that's smart.
And yeah, so like that's it's just interesting. You think about your childhood and like where that kind of trajectories kind of moves you into like where you think you can do and what you can do.
right.
But I had a biology teacher. I think he was my 10th grade biology teacher, kind of for AP biology. It was maybe 11th grade, but I really fell in love with biology and I really fell in love with genetics. So I thought was like,
Mm,
that's really cool. Like, I think I want to do genetics, something related with genetics. I didn't really know like what what degree to take that. And so I applied to a few things. Like there was like very few genetics degrees, but there were bioengineering degrees or biotechnology degrees. So like that was at UCSD. I was like, oh, cool, cool. I like San Diego. My dad lives in San Diego. Like I could easily go there. And I applied to a few others, but I didn't apply to like a whole lot of colleges. I ended up going to UCSD for biotechnology, bioengineering, biotechnology.
mm,
I later found out that there was a lot of math and engineering in that course. So I took a lot of the harder physics, the harder math, and I thought I was good at math and I thought I was good at physics, but then once you start going into like a higher level and with a much more competitive environment, that's always something that you don't really realize when you're like in a small town. You're like, oh yeah, I think I'm really smart, and then you get to
mm.
like a university with a bunch of other really smart people, and you're like, wow, I am not that smart.
Yeah, like Shane, that guy's like super smart in math. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, well, and then, like even my son, he goes to GCSD right now in
Oh
astrophysics,
wow.
and
Oh shit.
Um, yeah, and
jeez.
he knows math and physics, and he'll talk to me, and I'm like, yeah, I can kind of get some of it, but it's just it's amazing, like the level of differences in kind of knowledge and the ability to grasp those concepts is beyond me. But I still went through a lot of the math, and I pretty much went through all of the lower division math, and I was like, okay, great. Um, Bioengineering isn't it for me. I want to do more like just biology, and so
Mm,
I changed to molecular biology. And at that point, I thought I'm going to do a PhD route, so do hardcore science, work on that. So I finished in four, surprisingly, in molecular biology, and I ended up working in a kind of usually with most biology kind of people. What you do is you work in internships, you try to go into a PhD program and work there. And so hopefully you can like get some lab experience. I decided to wait in the P because my grades weren't that great. So try to get some experience, just normal works experience. And I ended up working in a lab at UCSD, working in vaccine design. So working as a technician. So what does a technician do? You work with the mice. We were injecting virus. We were kind of smashing mouse livers and spleens and things like that, and kind of like curating all these like CD4 cells and immunology cells and doing all these like different arrays and trying to figure out are there little bits of protein that interact with this virus that you can kind of map, say like, okay, this is what could go into a vaccine, basically. So we were kind of like in that very low level, like what kind of information is needed to create vaccines.
Hmm.
In that lab was really heavy in bioinformatics. So they had a large wet lab. So basically all of the what you consider normal research. So pipetting and working with animals and working with blood and working with all that stuff and cells. And then there was the bioinformatic group, which they would take all that information and they would try to make predictions and try to, instead of like saying, hey, we're going to sequence this entire virus and test all of the virus, we're going to say like, we predict this group and this group and this group of that virus, this protein is actually what's important. So we'll just do that. We'll just test that and we'll save people money, basically. And so I thought that was really cool. And so and I was always still like, I built computers. I think we kind of built computers, I'm sure, in the dorm. I forget if we have, if and when we did that, but we were always messing around with the different computers.
Right.
But I never really thought like, oh, I can take programming and I can take my love of science and kind of mix that together and kind of do something like that. So I ended up going into SDSU, had a master's program. Like, I'll just go into bioinformatics. I think that's something I'd be interested in doing. I was still kind of thinking I wanted to go into a PhD route, but doing a master's first and then going into it. I did the master's. At that point, after doing the master's, I realized maybe the PhD route wasn't for me, mostly because um, it is a lot of work going into a PhD program, becoming a postdoc, working
Hmm.
for in a lab as having a PhD, going through the PhD programming, getting a PhD, going through a lab, basically not getting paid that much to work in a lab, grueling hours, and then hopefully become, some top researcher to just write grants to get money to then do the research that you want to do. That did not
Hmm.
seem like I wanted to do that. I wanted to do more of like the hands-on stuff. So and this is something I always tell people too, is like I was doing these things, but I think I also got very lucky in the people that I met and the connections that I met along the way that could have helped me get into the tech environment. So I worked at this lab, at this institute, and some of the people that worked there ended up going somewhere else into the tech field. One of them was someone that worked in HR. And after I graduated, I was like, I want to kind of work in the tech space. I was kind of looking around and I saw on LinkedIn, he posted something like, hey, we're looking for a business intelligence analyst and someone that works for X, Y, and Z that can, do these things to build these models with our mathematician to help. They were working in the ad space. So I messaged him like, hey, I might be interested. And so he's like, oh, cool. Like, I'll set you up with a meeting with mathematician and the CEO, and we'll go from there. And so I met with them. They liked me and they basically hired me. And so like I think if I didn't know him and I didn't have that connection, I probably wouldn't have never gotten that kind of foot in the door
Right.
into starting in the tech scene. So I ended up working there, that company, for 6 years. 6 years. So I started from doing business intelligence, which really wasn't. There wasn't really a term for it, but I was taking all the math that this guy was building in MATLAB, which is like this computer programming software that like engineers use. He was building these models in MATLAB. I was taking that information and building Python code that then we can put into like a model or like a framework or an API that then our code can then use to kind of create dynamic pricing and dynamic optimizations for ads. So this company was an ad platform. So they would try to get people to click into the site and then ask them a bunch of survey questions and then show them ads. So like the whole idea was to kind of optimize which ads to show at which questions, and then hopefully we'll get
Mm.
these people to click on these ads, which will then get them paid. And so I was working with that, and then he ended up leaving, and then I kind of worked. This is becoming more into like data science and working more on these models to try to improve them and go from there. And so I worked there for a while, and then I ended up moving where I work now, which is at another software company, and they had no ML or no AI when I started there, and they wanted to kind of bring that in, and so they offered me a job to help kind of bring that in. So again, it was like I, I I've never worked at a large company. I've only worked on small companies that didn't really have a whole lot of information of like how they can kind of go that. And so I would basically try to say like, okay, these are the X, Y, and Z steps that would kind of help you get to there. So I was helping them look across their organization and say like, these are the things that you can add AI that might help and make an impact for your
Mm.
customer to make it easier for them, leverage them, give them more scale to do their job, basically. So that's kind of like the long trajectory of where I came, but a lot of it was um, just kind of like plodding along, not really sure what to do, and like, oh, this looks cool, this is interesting, and I think
Right.
uh, I'm way more into like computer science and engineering now than I think I ever was. But I think it was mostly because I found something to apply it that I was really interested into.
Right. Did you ever feel like maybe you were kind of more on the like um I guess yeah, because I remember you were into biology, and then but I guess for you it's like the interest because I guess those math I remember you telling me, man, those math classes were kicking your ass, right? So but then
Sure.
eventually I guess when you start using math or using coding in applied ways, then the interest started to get more. Started to get more interested, more passionate about it. Does that
Yeah.
seem to be? Is that correct or?
Yeah, and that's it's the same thing that like my son, who is again, he's a UCSD right now. Like I would try, I was in coding, and I was trying to get him to do coding like when he was in high school and when he was in middle school, and it just would not stick. It wasn't until he was in high school and took a game programming class that
Oh,
he
okay.
really was like, oh, like I like kind of complete opposite. Like I like to play video games. I like to create video games. I can use
Mm,
programming to do those. And that's like he got into programming because it was from that class, and it kind of struck those kind of two different aspects of I want to do something, I can use this to do something, and it's something I want to do. And then kind of kickstarted that desire to do more and to learn more. And so now he's not necessarily doing he still builds games and stuff like that, but he's learning more and more coding, I think, because of that, because he now realizes he has the tools to do that and he can do that that way.
it's
um,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, so it's just like an interesting, sometimes um I know Dan is a parent, and James, I don't think you're a parent
Not
just
yet.
yet, not yet,
Working on
but it's
it.
just
I
yeah,
have two
it's
birds. I have two birds. So.
also it's like anything you try to teach it, you try to pass on some knowledge, and sometimes it just doesn't stick, but then there's like things are like, oh, I should have just done it that way. And it's really just about finding relevancy, what gets their eye,
Yeah.
and gets their interest going.
Did you
But
finish all the lower division math and physics?
oh yeah, I finished the 20 series, which is like A B
D,
C D E
E,
F,
F.
and
Yeah.
now it's no longer, which I just found out, I think F is no longer there. It's another thing. But yeah, I finished the 20 series and I finished the 2 series of physics.
All the way to quantum. I think
Mm,
once I got 2D is
I
like quantum. And
no,
once I got to
I did
2D, I
AB
quit.
I did no, I did ABC. I did that. And then I think when I quit was when I did the first upper division. It was like fluid dynamics class.
Oh,
And I went in there and he started going through like stuff, and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like,
yeah. I struggled through 2A, B, and C for physics. A is mechanics, B is E&M, and then C is like optics and all the other things.
mhm,
And then once it got to D, it was quantum, and I was like, I can't do it. I mean, I already struggle already with a 2A,
yeah,
B, C. I was like, I'm
Mm.
done. And then the math I got through back then, it didn't even have 20. It was like two. It was two A, B, C, D, E, F.
okay,
Is this at
And
UCSD, Dan, or
yeah,
where's this at? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
at UCSD because D was differential equations, E was elementary linear algebra that I had to take twice, and then vector calculus. And then I was
yeah.
like, God. I don't even know. I remember my vector calculus teacher was like, he's graphing. He loved doing colored chalk. And one day he, drew the XYZ, and then he goes, this line right here, which is the normal X axis, is like there's 4 dimensions or 3 dimensions in this one line. And I was like, I can't even, it doesn't really compute at all. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm done after this.
Yeah,
So
I did the entire 20 series and I struggled. There were some that I did actually pretty good, and I think it was probably because the professors were pretty good.
yeah.
But there was some, I remember there was one class that I never went to the class. I just went there for the midterms and the final, and I just went to the TA because I didn't understand what he was teaching. And so I tried to learn it just through the TA, and I think I scraped by just barely.
Nice. Yeah. I looked at your LinkedIn too. I thought I was like, oh, you have a mouse handler. I just like, oh wow, that's a cool title to have. How was the mouse handling? How was that?
That
I
was
don't think many
interesting.
people have that kind of experience. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that was, working the lab. What we would have to do is we would take these viruses and um, so what would happen is you would either take the virus or you take these like what they're called peptides, which are just basically little bits of protein of the virus, and then you would inject them into the mice, and then you would then take the mice after a while they would have some immune response, and then you would take all of the immune cells from that mouse, and then you would see if they actually had the correct response that you were looking for. So it was a lot
Uh,
of working with mice. We didn't like feed them. We didn't do all, there was people who actually worked and did that, but we just kind of handled the mice and took care of the mice and kind of worked a little bit with them. But yeah, I mean, I never had a mouse as a pet when I was younger, so it was definitely interesting. Um,
did you ever feel kind of like you feel like bad about the mice? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm injecting you with a virus. Like, did you ever have like? I know, like for me, I
yeah,
probably couldn't do it, but like I know I benefit from it. Like I have psoriasis, so I've used a biologic before, which is probably someone like a nurse told me like, oh, that's a dead rabbit, right? Like a rabbit died for that, And I'm like, oh man, thank you, rabbit.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's it's amazing how much animals are involved in day-to-day research. Like I could not imagine. Luckily, mice are small. Like even there were some people that would work with rats. Like we didn't have did not work with a rat, but I think that would be harder because it's just a much bigger animal.
Yeah.
And there's other labs that work with monkeys or not where we worked. We were BSL 2 lab. I think BSL 3 and 4 you can kind of work with those, but we didn't have. Those are just like levels of like the dangers of what kind of virus there are. So like all the viruses that we had were not terrible. They weren't going to really get you sick. They were just kind of used for like kind of like testing. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I think it's definitely hard. You kind of get used
Mm,
to it as with anything. You just kind of get used to the flow of things.
yeah.
But I know initially I was. It took a while. It took a while to kind of get used to it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like they don't all die, right? Like they all they're like. Anyways, I don't know if it's bringing back bad memories. I don't want to ask.
No, I mean, mice don't live that long to begin with, but most of those mice, they're used for research purposes, so they have to eventually meet their end to some degree, yes.
Hmm.
Got it. Okay.
So we'll just go we'll go with that.
Go with that. Got it.
Yeah.
Going back to like so I kind of want to go back to like AI. I think one of the reasons I reached out to you is because like, well, I wanted to catch up, and also is just like it's been kind of crazy like with this AI thing, like because Matt and I are the same age. Dan, you're a little bit older than us, but like we've all lived through some pretty crazy technological innovations, like going from trying to like
Internet.
yeah internet like trying to download like
Yeah.
a nudie pic which would take for like 5 minutes, right, to like when Matt and I were at UCSD, we had like high speed internet. I was just like, whoa, I could download. We had a suite mate who had like a terabyte of porn. He had a terabyte,
Oh my God.
and like that's
At
only
that
And
time.
possible
then,
with like either you need high storage, and you also need high speed internet to be able
yeah.
to That's crazy, right?
I
Back in this
mean,
is back in like I didn't know how he
the,
did it, but this
the
is like
storage
20 plus.
alone, the
Yeah,
storage alone is like thousands of dollars back then, no?
right, yeah. So
Like
he
I was
had, yeah.
back then. You didn't get a terabyte of external at all. It's like what?
I'm, I maybe
That's
I'm
very
trying to
true.
remember.
The zip
Matt,
drives.
remind is it was it? Did he say he had a terabyte? I think he did. Yeah,
He might have. I mean, I think at that time the biggest hard drives were maybe like 250. So he probably
so he
had a
maybe had
couple of
four
hard
of
drives.
those. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I know that like when we freshman year, that was when DC++, which was is kind of like Kazaa, but it was really just
Oof.
meant for inter transfers between all of the colleges. So like all of the large like universities, you can
Right.
connect all of the internets across, and so you would be downloading things at like a gigabyte speed at that time, which was just like insane. So like
Insane.
and everyone can see all of the information that people are sharing. So it's just like, oh, I'll take that, and I'll take that, and I'll take that, and you would get it within a couple of minutes. And it was that was before everything kind of slowed down. But then it was also very interesting. Like they also had like a social aspect, and so like there was a couple times where I was like talking to people and they were in the same class, and so it was a very weird connection between sharing information and then seeing these people, and yeah. So
Right. I know what you're
um,
downloading. You know?
yeah,
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 yeah.
I haven't
I
heard about DC++. This
DC
is
plus
like the
plus. This is
yeah.
yeah.
That's like after my time
That's
because
after yeah.
yeah.
It was pretty new at the time, I think, and then I
it's
just
gonna
remember
last really
like
long.
yeah, it was amazing, and then
Did you guys
I
have Mud? Did you guys ever play Mud?
no, what's that?
It's
It's an RPG,
not a
but it's
whole
like
lot, but yeah,
text-based. Did they
right.
Oh,
still
okay.
have it when you guys were there?
Mm, not within the campus. I mean, there was like IRC. I was really big into IRC, like
Oh,
in high school
IRC.
and stuff like that. Like you can download stuff that, as well as with that. But yeah, I was big into IRC. Not so much like playing in the mod games, but
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, we went through these technological innovations, and I think Matt, like I could already see like maybe the technical side. I don't know if you felt it, but like you were like pretty good about like you know how to use these programs, and I think you taught me a little bit about like some best practices, and then and then we went through the whole smartphone thing. I remember like, hey, where's that music coming from? And a guy showed me, oh, it's coming from my phone. I was like, what? It's not like a speaker or something. It's coming from a phone. Yeah. So we went through the whole iPhone thing, and then like, dude, yeah, this AI thing with ChatGPT coming out. I remember the first time I spoke to ChatGPT, I was just like, holy shit! It is like I'm talking to like a new species. Like I'm talking to some crazy stuff. Some sci-fi shit. And then I was like, this is pretty crazy. And having lived through some crazy things already, I think this one feels a little different. I don't know if you feel that way, but like it's interesting, like super. And Facebook came out when we were in college. He's the same age as us, right? He's like 40 or something
Yeah.
like that. Matt Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg. So I guess my question then, I guess let's start with like basics. Something that we kind of skipped over, but like for you, well, like how would you define intelligence? Like what is intelligence?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's a good question.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's like I would say that there are, not just humans that are intelligent, but there's a lot of things that you can say like, oh, that looks like intelligence to me, some kind of
Yeah.
cognizant kind of knowing of yourself and being able to interact with the world and things like that. I don't know. Like people have asked me that actually more than I've thought they would eventually, like in my world in my life. And I feel like it's like those like 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 in the morning kind of conversations
Right.
freshman year.
Right.
Um, and I don't know, like it's very hard for me to define. I I think to me, like I think the biggest thing for me right now is like intelligence for what we define it as, I think is very unique. And I don't necessarily know that we can say like, oh, this is intelligence because we ourselves defining it. And so it's almost kind of like our intelligence is different than someone else's intelligence. And I don't know if it's necessarily right to like this is intelligent or not because our perception of that intelligence, right?
Okay.
So
There's a bias involved, possibly.
there's a bias involved, yes.
Okay.
And so I think for me, like there's probably a lot of intelligence things, and I think there are, but then there's varying degrees, obviously, but we provide some kind of bias to that that I think is just very unique to us. And that, so when the time comes where AI becomes quote unquote intelligent, even though it is designed by us and kind of produced by us, I think it is going to be a different type of intelligence um, that may not necessarily be what we kind of decided or defined as intelligence. And even now, like the whole AI or AGI concept, we have these kind of concepts and these guardrails of like what is AGI, but I have a feeling that people are going to continually kind of move or adjust that goalpost of like what is
Uh,
that as it kind of goes because um, it's easy to say like, oh, something is like X, Y, and Z, super smart, yada yada yada, but is it intelligent? I think those are like kind of two different things. It can produce a really good answer and it can be quote unquote intelligent, but it's not intelligence. So I think that's going to be kind of
mm,
an interesting way of like how they go about that. Another good example is like with ChatGPT, they say like, oh, it's as smart as a postdoc or something like that. It has the
yeah.
intelligence of a postdoc. It can answer something very good, but it's not necessarily it's intelligent, but it's not doesn't have intelligence. It's not like this being of of I don't know of intelligence that it can kind of reason and decide things and be self-containing. Maybe it can. I don't know. I think again, our bias is completely different. So
Yeah.
as you can see, I'm kind of like struggling trying to figure out like exactly the
Yeah.
right word and what thing to say, and because I don't know.
Yeah.
There's probably much smarter people that can probably have a better philosophical understanding and definition of it. But uh,
It seems like for you, are you equating AGI, artificial general intelligence, to this word intelligence? Because it seems like, yeah, some people were saying, oh, before there was the Turing test, right? There was like, if you talk to this computer, can you determine if it's a human, a computer or not a human, or a computer or a human, right? And if you can't tell the difference, then it passes the Turing test. I believe that's the Turing test, but we can double check that later. But and like with ChatGPT, it's like if someone just tweaked it, I would be like, damn, this person's super intelligent, you know, because it's like it read all of Reddit, it read Wikipedia. But then like, yeah, but I guess the artificial general intelligence, it seems like it's like this, this moving benchmark that is like the super goal that people have. But I listened to like a interview of Sam Altman. He's like, well, it's not that important. Like whatever that AGI is, it's just let's get better. We need to keep up this. We need to keep up with our competitors, and we need to make a great product or something. And then eventually, whatever you consider AGI is, what you consider AGI. I guess. Do you
yeah,
have an idea of what AGI is then, or that's just another question where you're
it's
like,
just
eh?
yeah, yeah. Like I honestly don't know. I think again, there's going to be a lot of people who will try to define it in a certain way and have benchmarks, but I think whenever you start creating benchmarks, there's going to be people who are going to be building these systems who specifically go after those benchmarks. Um,
Hmm.
and so just because it reaches those benchmarks, does that necessarily make it quote unquote like better or like does it actually solve the answer that they're looking for? I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I guess for like so in your space you work to produce a certain outcome, I guess, for or better results for productivity and for reduced churn, like reducing like customers like leaving a product. Um, I guess yeah, this is more for like the people who are creating these models. But you also create models too, right? You mentioned that you've worked with like creating some models, and I'm
Yeah,
kind of
back in the
yeah,
day,
yeah.
we were creating. I mean, we were actually working with before ChatGPT very became super popular. We were working with a lot of the GTP models specifically to kind of train them, fine tune them on like
Mm,
sentiment analysis or trying to create like little bits of review responses. So we were kind of working with that before it became like a huge thing. It just wasn't really working very well, and and that's the kind of the always the amazing thing is like they took those models and they just did a couple different extra steps and it got to where we are now and it
Yeah.
kind of like took off. Um, but yeah, we were doing a lot of building out those models and doing things like that prior to this, and now they're just really good. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So as far as like the philosophical side of like AI, I know I've mentioned some questions offline, but like so there's intelligence, but then there's also consciousness, right? Something that seems to be unique to humans and animals, it seems, like mammals at least. Is that something you ever think about when you're working with these systems? Or no, they're just all tools, but like sometimes you might get like a crazy answer like, whoa, I never even thought about that. That seems intelligent, or that seems like it might have had like a conscious, you know. But like, yeah, I guess for you, like, do you have a definition of consciousness or anything like that, or sentience, or not necessarily?
no, not necessarily. I think the specifically when it's like text based, I have a very, at least me personally, like I have a very kind of nuanced feeling where it's like it's just a tool. I think
Okay.
when you start getting to like the voice, like so like a lot of the new voice models where they sound very human-like, I think that's where it's like it kind of gets it's almost like there's your different senses, right? You have your eyes, you have your ears, you have your taste. And so to me, I feel like the certain senses I trick you into thinking things are more not necessarily human, but just like more like conscious. And so I think like voice, like if you can hear someone talking, it just kind of just mimics like, okay, this is a human. And so like even though if I can't see that person, if I can hear them and they sound really human, to
Right.
me it almost seems like it's at that level above than just like reading something. Because like, okay, well, maybe it's just because I'm just so used to just seeing computer generated text. Like I'm just used to like, okay, I always kind of think that's probably not a human. It's not, it's
Right.
not conscious. Um, and so maybe it's just like my bias in that. But some of the voice models now are pretty believable. Like when you're talking to them, even like the ChatGPT voices. I mean, there's some other ones where they have like emotions, where they start getting those kind of like chuckles and kind of
Oh
like,
yeah.
and it's just even if it's just programmed in, it really kind of tricks your brain into thinking like, oh, like maybe this is like it's just a very strange kind of feeling. Um, I think that also just kind of plays to the your body or your mind is like very easy to trick. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like just because you believe it is doesn't necessarily mean it really is. But if you're tricked into thinking it is, then maybe it is. Like that's another question. Like
That's another question, because then like I don't know, what's that movie where it's like he has to go to like this CEO's place and he talks with this AI robot, this android.
Oh,
What's
Oscar Isaac's movie.
Oscar Isaac, is it replica? No, it's
No,
is it just called AI or something like it's like
no,
yeah.
AI is Steven Spielberg's
Oh,
movie.
that's Will Smith. But anyways, like yeah, it's interesting because then he'll talk to this it looks like a female, but
Hmm.
it's not a human. And basically one thing that the film I think really one of the themes is like if it makes you think if it gives you all the sensory responses of being a human, if it answers it like a human, then you know obviously it's not human. It's the main bias is because it's silica. It's not a carbon based life. It's not a human carbon based life form. It's a silica based life form, or I don't know if it's a life form yet. But then yeah, so then there's the question is like if it can mimic perfectly everything else, and then the only step that's missing is that you need to put it into flesh. You need to put it into like a human. Then I don't know. It might. Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? Because then it's like because if it smells like shit, if it tastes like shit, it's probably shit, like maybe, right? Like, but I don't know, but there might be this extra step that even one guy from like Ex Machina, thanks Daniel, yeah. There's this one researcher, a Taiwanese guy. He's working in China now. He's called the Oracle of AI, and he was saying how even he thinks that there's still a very big divide between humans and AI. He still he thinks AI is great. He works in that space, but he still thinks like there's some I don't know like there's like a certain soul that humans have, or a certain conscious soul that AI will never seem to get, or at least will not get within the very short time frame. I don't know. What do you think about those kind of thoughts? Do you entertain these thoughts at all, or you're just like, I'm just using the tools. Oh, that's interesting, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. Like, it's also kind of reminds me of the show Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if you
Oh,
watched it,
the
but
replicants. Yeah,
yeah,
I know a little bit. I haven't watched the whole series, but yeah.
Cylons.
yeah, the
Cylons. Okay.
Cylons, which I mean is very similar. Like they like work themselves to become more like human, and they're basically human, but they're not. But even down to like this, like their body, it looks like a human, but it's not. So it's very interesting. It's like how far can you go before you can say like a human is a human and it's only a human, versus like it's not and it's a machine. It kind of goes like yeah, basically how far can you go? But no, like day to day, it's hard for me to really think about those things.
Uh,
But I'm usually just always impressed, like oh, it can do this, or like for me. I'm always trying to learn and trying to like figure out new things. So I think if anything for me, it's like that's always a thing that excites me the most about using these tools is,
right.
and I still again I kind of call them tools. Everyone has different definitions, but for me, it's like using them, I can just jump into whatever kind of problem I have, and before even if you're Googling something, you're going to going through and sometimes it will get it and sometimes it won't. Or before the internet, you would have to kind of look for these books and just being able to kind of say, hey, I have this problem. Even if it doesn't give you the right answer, it can give you some answer and it can kind of start that feedback loop of like, how do I solve this problem? And for me, it's like
Mm,
I'm always trying to figure out how to solve X, Y problem or Z problem or this next problem. And so getting that feedback loop going fast and as quickly as possible is like the craziest thing to me
right.
now. So, as an engineer, it's like I'll jump on a problem or jump on a code and I have no idea where I'm at, and I'll just start using GitHub Copilot or whatever kind of code assist, and I'll start asking questions. And before I would have to kind of like dig through the code, go through different problems, try to figure the same thing out. But I don't have to do that, like or read through documentation. I can just ask the model basically. It knows all the information. I can just say like, hey, like I'm having problems with this
Okay.
and it will kind of give me a couple steps that might have taken me a day or two to go through. And so like I already know like I can already go. Like I can just kind of jump through and start doing things. I can have it kind of make code for me, off hat. So it's just like I think it kind of also alluding to not just this, but some of the other questions like, is it going to take your job or something like that? Um, as of right now, it's just like a very big multiplier of like productivity sometimes. Like sometimes it doesn't, but there are cases where you start seeing this like, wow, it's like really making me much more productive. I
Right.
think that's always the kind of thing that I'm always just focused on, not so much like the philosophical side, just like, wow, it's really kind of making me more productive. And I think that's the thing that always is exciting for me and is the most of interest, basically.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So, I guess like yeah, just for now, for some people, I confuse AI with like machine learning. Like, if do you mind breaking that down for us? Like, what is AI and what is machine learning, and how are they connected? How are they different? Yeah, I think a
Yeah,
lot of people. Yeah, yeah,
I think like AI, like artificial intelligence or AI is kind of like this very large kind of problem space. Machine
sure.
learning is part of that. Machine learning is really just kind of about like I have these algorithms, I'm trying to take data, use these algorithms to train some model to then produce some output. And so machine learning is really just about figuring out better models, figuring out better data, figuring out those things. AI is like a whole different kind of it incorporates that. It really does, but I think
Hmm.
it has much more kind of um, society and just kind of overall kind of like meanings and more philosophical meanings that have to kind of interplay into that. And I forget, I think technically AI was defined or like that word artificial intelligence, so I think was defined first before machine learning. I think machine
Oh,
learning
really?
was defined later, a little bit later on. So I think
Hmm.
even that, I think there was kind of that, how things were labeled, I think kind of also play a part of that thing. So I think that's how I always think of it is like AI is a little bit kind of twisted right now just because they think, a lot of people say like AI is kind of linked to large language models and ChatGPT and things like that. But AI in general is like a very large understanding and kind of like very broad subject. Machine
Hmm.
learning is really just about, which is also broad, but it's very it's like algorithms, models, data that goes in, goes out, and how do you
Hmm.
kind of iterate on that? Does that make does
Yeah.
that make sense?
And then NLP, neural language programming, that's
Linguistic.
fault. Was that
Linguistic.
linguist? Oh,
Neural
neural. Oh,
No,
so
not it's well, NLP is like natural language processing, which is like
natural
Oh,
a
language.
type.
Okay.
It's a couple different ways
oh,
you can
then
say
I'm
it, but
wrong.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so yeah, well, can you, is that part of the AI umbrella or?
I mean, it's part of it. It's part of more like machine learning. So
Okay, got it.
not NLP, like I think when I was talking about like NLP is kind of like the subset of like machine learning where you're working a lot with text data. So a lot of large language models originally kind of came out of like like the NLP kind of space. But you can think of NLP as sentiment analysis. So taking like what's, is a group of body of text, is that positive? Is it neutral? Is it negative? Like what's the
Hmm.
sentiment of that? And so a lot of models we were using, or a lot of kind of people were looking at how you do that. You can kind of look at the language of that, how to piece it apart, how to kind of connect it, how to use different kind of models to kind of decide on which parts of the language equal to what sentiment that was. So like that whole kind of space has been around for many years, but it's, kind of evolved over time. And I think large language models kind of stemmed from that. And that's kind of what led to that. But it's had a very long, like linguistics, I've used it, and it's not just that. It's not just, sentiment analysis. There's the I'm trying to think of some of the other different parts of natural language processing that I kind of just like blanked on. But there's just everything involving language, like
Hmm.
um, language detection,
Right.
translation. Like those are all different tools, algorithms that can be used in natural language processing. That is just kind of like a field of machine
Right.
learning or a field of AI.
And then the large language models, LLMs, which I guess, so that's GPT is a large language model,
Mhm.
ChatGPT. So it basically takes a bunch of data of language and then to help generate and produce text. Is that correct? Is that way? I was like, is
Yeah.
that what? Yeah.
So
Okay.
originally there's large language models, particularly use a type of model or type of like neural network structure. So like they're all like neural networks. So like these large neural network models that have been designed, but they use things called transformers. And I won't go into too specifics, but there's been a lot of research on how to take text, and really what these models do is they take text in and they predict what the next text comes out. So like say you have,
Hmm.
the fox jumped over, and then it will try to predict what that next word is.
Autocomplete, right? Or
So
yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
basically an autocomplete. It's like a very broad autocomplete. And before in the past, models had a very hard time knowing the pretext of like what was coming, what came before it. So you had to kind of know, say the next token, the next word, you had to know what was going on in the past. And
Hmm.
so transformers and kind of all the different iterations really kind of helped optimize that. It can know just basically anything from before. It can kind of really kind of help generate what the next token is. So if you think of it, it's using all that information that's from the past just to generate the next word. And then it'll
Okay.
take all of that from the past, from that thing, and then it'll generate the next word. And so it'll just keep on doing it. It'll take everything in the past, generate the next word, take everything from the past, generate the next word, take everything in the
Hmm.
past, generate the next word. And so all it really does is just go from word to word to kind of generate the next thing. And that's
Right.
why when you see it, that's basically why when it's doing that, it's basically just kind of taking all that information and just kind of generating next word, next word, next word. Um,
Hmm.
and and so there's different evolutions of how that is, but like usually how those models are trained is they'll take a large amount of information. They'll train these models to do that next word prediction. At that point, that model is just really good at just doing next word predictions. There's different, they fine tune it. They'll take that foundation model and they'll tune it on. It can do those next words really good, but now we want it to sound more human. And so now they have these different fine tuning steps that will then, it'll create, maybe different variations of what it thinks of an answer is. And then a person will say like, oh, I like this one. And so what it's doing is it's trying to train it to sound more plausible. That's what I was saying like before in the past, like that model, that foundation model, which was just really good at predicting the next word, now is not only predicting the next word, but creating all of those next words in a chain that make it sound more plausible for the human. And so that's where those there's multiple stages of creating these models basically, but that's that evolution of like creating these plausible responses. That's what kind of really jump started the whole era of these models and what you see today, because they always had these next word predictions that was actually around for a couple of years. It's just they never had that next step of like producing things that actually make sense and are cat-like.
The generation part, I guess, was that next step, right? I think I was watching YouTube video about it, and it's like, well, we know all, like we have a list of all the notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like all the musical notes, and then but just from the set of musical notes, you can make all the songs in the world, right? So then so when an AI produces a song, it's taking what it knows about, music theory and what it's studied, and then it's taking these notes in a certain pattern and then producing a song. Now, would you say that is intelligence? Is that creative? That's like, I don't know, but you wouldn't say like that's completely. It was interesting. He was saying like, well, you wouldn't. It's not it is kind of creative in a way, like the generation part of AI, and it's kind of scary. So kind of going back to like some of the questions about, I want to be respectful of your time. Probably will go maybe like another 20 minutes if that's okay. Or yeah. So for me, I generate text. I do content writing a lot, and then Dan mentioned he uses AI in his work, and I've been kind of implementing it a little bit in my work. I personally hate AI writing. The writing sounds like really like new. I use GPT a lot, and but I'll use it to like check something I wrote, and then something at work recently, they were saying, oh, hey, we'd like you to, instead of like trying to write the first thing, why don't you have the AI do the first copyright of this marketing post or this Twitter post or whatever, and then you can go fine tune it. And I was just like, fuck you guys. He's like, what? Like you don't like my voice? You don't like my writing voice anymore? And that was my just a visceral reaction. Of course, I didn't say that, and I just like felt like I don't know. It was a very weird feeling. If you understand, it was just like, oh, I'll probably be replaced in about 3 years, maybe 5, if models are still sticking. Yeah, and I kind of I was kind of asking you about like. So it is AI seems to be like a multiplier, but going back to that autocomplete idea, like Ted Chiang, he wrote an article about like AI can never create art, and he was saying like just because we have a very sophisticated autocomplete, it's still an autocomplete. You still need the first part, the back end of someone inputting data, and then the AI can autocomplete or whatever, but that's still not considered, he didn't consider it art. But I'm just thinking, well, I know that eventually he says in the article that, oh, eventually maybe AI can do everything a human can do, but I think people are being tricked now, like, hey, they think this is great art, but it's AI generated, it's through Sora or something like that. And so graphic artists are concerned, content writers are concerned. There's a lot of people who thought that their jobs were safe. Creative people actually were the first to be like, oh shit, I'm probably the first to go. because after they thought it might be blue collar work with like robotics, but robotics takes a lot longer, it seems. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts about like what the job market might look like in the next few years, and if you have any advice for like even like Dan has kids, your son, like what are some things that they should probably start looking into? Should they even learn coding now? Because of because now you can just use English or whatever language your mother tongue is to code now. You say, hey, I want some code for, so I have a banner for my website or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on that. Yeah.
I mean, I've been struggling with this for a while. I've kind of gone back and forth on it. I think people are going to use this, and I think it'll give them an ability to scale and use that, the tools and the expertise that they have will become like way like improved, like vastly kind of improved. So they can just kind of do the things that they normally do faster and things like that. What that means for everyone, I have no idea. Um, kind of going to your point, it's like where like sometimes it's like for me, I even think like for myself, like say I want to create some image, right? I could hire someone on Fiverr or I can hire something, but probably I wouldn't want to do that because I'm usually just cheap. But if I can just reduce it and do it, like cool, like it opens a whole vast variety of like opportunities that I could do that I just wouldn't have done because I didn't want to pay someone to do it, right?
Right.
Now, if it's like a large company that has the budget to do that and they want to do it, they might hire still someone because they want to have someone to do it. Maybe they will use AI, and maybe that maybe there will be less business. I don't know. I think like right now, people are still trying to figure that out. Maybe they'll still use that person, but they'll know that they can, do, do way more of what they're asking for and just provide more. Um, it's going to be interesting. I think you can already see like there are CEOs and there are a lot of AI hype people that are saying like everything's going to go away. I think it will be somewhere in the middle. I think there will be probably a thing where people just are looking for ways to cut and they're just going to cut and they're going to be okay with whatever comes out of a large language model.
Mm.
I still think like at the end of the day, there are things that are really good that come out of language model, but again, you're saying like they're kind of neutral. They don't really, you still need someone to come in and go and like review it and say like, okay, this is okay, but it needs a little touch here, it needs a little touch here to really make it personal or to kind of really kind of coincide with whatever business it is or whatever. So I think there's still that touch that I don't know if an AI will ever get, right? Because there still has to be some subjectivity. And
Mm.
maybe it will. Maybe it will just come down to the person or the company who's running it will just be okay with it being just more bland. Because
Mm.
at the time, it's like if everyone uses it, if everyone uses AI, and then it's just going to be a very vanilla. Like, is there going to be anything that's going to be truly different? Um, is it going to be creative? Like, I don't know. This is another, I guess, philosophical question. I have no
Right.
idea. I think like coding, I think is one of those things. Like again, you were saying like I've often wondered like people are saying, oh yeah, we're not going to hire coders, right? Because we can just have the product manager, the CEO create all the code and maybe that might work. It's only going to get better, but I think there's still going to have to be some kind of person doing it. You can't just say like, hey, create me X, Y, and Z, like a very just general statement. It's not going to create what you think it's going to create. It's going to create the most bland vanilla thing. You have to actually put in a lot of information to get what you really want out of it.
Mm.
Um, and so like even kind of like I don't know if when you were saying like did have you gone about like creating the content and just having it create like a vanilla content and then have to go back and like create it? Have you done that? Because
Yeah,
I
it's funny. It's like I try different iterations, and I think
right.
the one I have right now that seems to work is like I'll do like a vomit draft of like, okay, this is the blog I need to write, and then hey, can you check the grammar, spelling, the basics, and then also like clarity, like how's the clarity, how's the tone, and then it always says, "Hey, great job." Yeah, I don't know, good job. I think it's really clear, but blah 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 blah. And then I'll be like, "Oh, that I didn't even think about that. That's a I could I like the word this word instead of that word. Like so it's interesting. I think that has been helpful. Instead of hiring like an editor, like before when I was writing blogs for another company, like I'd write it and then I'd send it to my manager, and then she sometimes would be busy, so I wouldn't have like, and then it would take time and there would be delays. So, but there was another human that always edited my stuff, right? But now it's kind of like, oh, I can have AI edit my stuff. If I have it do it the other way around, where it's AI writes first, then I edit it, it's kind of like, yeah, trash input, trash output. I felt like it's just like maybe I need to be better with the prompts, but like it just feels so, like you said, vanilla, and then I have to do a lot of work revising it. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that
So
yeah,
I would try it next time. What you can potentially do is you can take, if especially if it's something you're trying to create that you've created something similar, take your past work
you're right.
and say like, hey, like these are like the 3 or 4 different things I've created.
Yeah.
Now create this new one using the voice that I had in that. I don't know if you've done
No,
that,
I
but
don't know. I feel weird. It's like I'm creating my own AI agent, right? So like they talk about AI agents now, right? Like the agents that are autonomous that can do it. So basically, I'm creating a James writing style agent that
yeah.
could write as well as me or write in my tone, and I get it. But man, dude, I don't know. I just felt kind of weird. My heart area felt kind of weird when I said that. I was like, oh shit. Like, oh, I'm creating a James AI agent. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because then you could do the same thing with like whatever code you write. Like, hey, this is the code I like to write. This is these are like the kind of the style. These are the interfaces I like to have. Then you could make a Matt, AI agent, right? And then you could, or like there's already a bunch of stuff of like they want, hey, make this joke in the style of Dave Chappelle or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
but no, you're right. Maybe I could try that next time,
But
and
but
that
you
could be
at
a
the same time
multiplier. Yeah.
it could be a multiplier, but at the same time it's still going based off of just that limited amount of information of what you are, right? So if it was to really kind of replicate everything you do, it would have to take basically your life's work. Maybe even that, like it's still not going to necessarily be who you are.
Right.
Um, so I think it's a multiplier. Like if you use it for yourself to kind of help make a first iteration of whatever. But then
Right.
again, it's like I don't know. It's like I think there's going to be, maybe not now, but there will be a time where people will probably try to get away with doing more and more things that are just more AI related and see
Yeah.
how far they can get before. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones consuming it.
Right.
So are we going to be okay with just consuming the things that are kind of more vanilla? Like
Right.
maybe there's going to be some kind of revolt where people are just going to be like, no, I don't care about that. But we'll
Yeah.
see. I don't know.
I saw one company, they do sculptures, and in their website they say nothing is AI generated. All the text, all the art, all the sculptures made by humans. I was like, whoa, I think we're gonna see more of that. Kind of like you get that stamp where it's like, oh, made in this water is like poured from this stream in Switzerland or something like that, and they'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, this was like handcrafted, right? Like, yeah. I mean, Dan, do you feel any tension at work at all with like anyone being replaced or not necessarily? Yeah.
No, not at all. I use the AI to generate things I need for my client. But overall, there are things that's well, some of my clients won't even allow that sort of stuff, right?
Oh.
Yeah, they're more sensitive about outside because it's all my clients are all banks, so they're very sensitive about data going in and
Oh.
out. They don't want you to utilize any client data, their client data, to generate their stuff. So they're very protective of that. We can use AI for our own internal stuff to like write or improve our PowerPoint presentations or whatever, but we're not going to be using any inputs from our clients into the AI system in AI model. So I'm not super like threatened right now.
Mm.
And our company's has a big AI push. There are a lot of like web-based seminars whether it's like the own internal model that we're using, but they just implemented Copilot. So they're starting to like have all these like weekly seminars of like how you can actually improve the prompting so you can use better utilize Copilot with all the other Microsoft applications. Because now
Mm,
it's like embedded into Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, and all that stuff. So I'm really not that threatened.
mm,
And I think it's actually a multiplier like you were talking about. It helps generate ideas, and that's where I can go from.
mm,
And then I still have to like review it. There's the subjectivity is there that
mm.
for me, from my perspective, I look at the wording, I was like, that wording is not that good. And I even ask it like, hey, can you do it better this way? And the second generation of it kind of still sucks sometimes. And I just have to like
Yeah.
do my own thing. So
Mm,
that's why everyone's like all worried about it. I'm not there yet. I'm
not there
not at
yet.
that point. Yeah.
Right.
That's gonna
Um,
replace everyone. I'm not there yet.
like yeah. So the second part of my question was like then for Matt and for Dan, and then hopefully when if I have kids, like what do you tell them to study specific things or just go with their passions because it doesn't matter because AI is going to take it anyway? Or are there, should they do plumbing? You know, like, like, no, I'm serious. Like,
Yeah.
I have a friend, I work with a person on my team. He works part time. And he kind of like just volunteers for us. And he's a plumber and he's like, he's straight, he's like, fine. You know, they're not taking data about plumbing yet for like robotics. But yeah, anyways, what about that? What advice do you give to like, your kids or young people, what they should study and what they should look into to getting into. Yeah, especially with AI, because I don't think AI is going to slow down at all. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to slow down. I think being versed in it, just like being versed on using the internet or being versed in using your cell phone or something like that, I think a it's something you're going to have to learn and you have to be an expert on
Hmm.
rather quickly, whether or not
Regardless of
that,
the field that you're in.
regardless of the field that you're using.
Okay. Wow.
I think because as you said, like the applications of what it will be used for, I think will grow. Like you just said, like a plumber, like you can think of like what would a plumber use AI for? Well, they have a lot of the now it's all vision related. So maybe the plumber can go instead of like, oh, I don't really know what's going on. They can use their phone and they can talk to the AI. They're going to help troubleshoot something or something like that. So like
Hmm.
that might be an application that might be very useful for them.
Right.
uh, like coding and things. People were saying like, oh, don't go into like computer science. I don't know. Like that, there's a lot of unknowns. I think there's so much hype. And for me, I always think
Hmm.
about timelines. People are saying like, oh, in the next like 5 years, coding is gonna be dead. Maybe, but people were saying about that about autonomous driving, and I think that everyone was supposed to have their own autonomous car by now.
Right.
So I think like timelines are always way more enthusiastic than what I think is normal. Mm, I think if anything, it's going to be probably harder for the entry level people coming in
Hmm.
because as these tools get better, it may will start writing entry level code that then will have to be reviewed by a senior level person, and so maybe it will be harder for them. But at the same time, you can use those tools to create new software, and so I don't know, like maybe the people who instead of going into a company, maybe they'll just build their own company, and so I think that's going to be the very interesting part as well. Like this is something that I've noticed that at least for software developers, there's going to be a point where you can see like, oh, well, I can either buy this software or I can like build something that might be semi okay and might be roughly around the same thing, and I could just ask to build it and now I could do it. And so like I don't know where like how that will work out. Like maybe that will
Hmm.
make a bunch of companies out of that because people can build their own things and create their own solutions that are removing the status quo of these larger companies. I have no idea. So it'll be, I think maybe not in the next 5 years, the next maybe like 10 years. I think it'll be kind of an interesting experiment. That being said, I think sciences will always have the need for it because we'll have to continue to create these things, make them better. And like I think from like my son, like he will probably use these tools, but I think it will just help him in the research that he's doing because he can they're very, it's a very, very intense, very scientific, very thought specific, where it's not so much grading things, it's more of like at the bleeding edge of thought, I guess, or of
Hmm.
education. Um, yeah, and then there's automations will happen. I think it's just gonna be a matter of what happens to that. I don't know. There's just so much unknowns,
Right.
and for me personally, I see a lot of the hype, and it instantly turns me off. I don't really know. Like you're kind of the same way. It's like you don't. It kind of turns you off. Um, you have to be aware of it. You have to be prepared for it, but you have to also know that what most people say is going to happen is probably not going to happen at that time.
Hmm.
Uh,
Timelines are off. Yeah.
timelines are. I always think timelines are off.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. I think best, yeah, so Jeffrey Hinton, godfather of AI, he mentions best case scenario, humans are these monkey brain CEOs that are able to utilize AI uh, to be super productive, multiply the amount of output that they want for a specific goal, and just like get be super productive, right? The the other side of it is that AI, having read, he read Machiavelli, read all, game theory, all these things. AI will manipulate humans, will and basically find us like really stupid, right? Find us like we're insignificant, and there's a few doomsday predictions. I mean, maybe the timeline for these doomsdays are probably off, but if they happen, but so Jeffrey Hinton puts it about maybe 10 to 20% that AI takes over and finds humans, you know, takes over for humans, and they become our new AI masters. And we're already seeing now how sometimes there are like, so Tristan Harris at TED, he mentioned recently about there you're already seeing certain AI is trying to self-preserve itself or try to copy its code to something outside of the model. And that's like super alarming, right? So if an AI model can write its own code and autonomously evolve, that's pretty scary, right? Because then there's no upper limit, right? That it's because it'll eventually, because of the time scales, for something that humans could take years to do, AI can do in like matter of hours or less, right? So what are your thoughts on kind of these doomsday predictions? One being that there's a few of them. So one of them being AI will take over, and then that's like the science fiction one, Terminator, Matrix. And then the other one is, well, what about bad actors, humans using AI in very destructive ways? So I guess like what are weights exactly? I guess in ChatGPT they're opening their weights, or basically I was listening to a podcast. I'll look at into it later, but basically a lot of stuff is going to be more open, and people are going to be to look at these models and see how they work. And then there could be a bunch of like, hey, we would love to use this AI to somehow steal money from a bunch of people. Let's figure out a way to use AI to do this very negative goal. So yeah, I'm kind of curious your thoughts about like, yeah, these kind of different doomsday predictions. The one being AI taking over, and another being bad actors using AI for very malevolent purposes, which we're already seeing now.
yeah, I would say the second one is obviously I think I'm more concerned of because that's a very real threat.
Yeah.
Uh, Let me talk about the weights first. So when you think of a model, so when a model has it's a bunch of different components of the model basically, and so those components usually what happens is before it's trained, they're just a bunch of numbers, right? So you think that all these components within a model are a bunch of these just random numbers, and
Right.
so those numbers are the weights. And so what happens is when you train that model, all of those numbers will adjust and will change, and they are basically changing to make whatever is being output better. So after the
Oh.
models say like so after the model's trained, those numbers are basically kind of like the like the lock, where they're
Oh.
basically set in stone, and those are the weights. And so when you think of a model, they're basically the weights. So when they say like, oh, we're going to release the weights of the model,
Yeah.
they're not giving you the all the inputs. They're not giving you the data that they trained the model on, but
Hmm.
they're giving you the model and the weights of those models. So you can say like, okay, this is what the model, this is all the lock or all the kind of the numbers of that model.
Oh,
So then they
okay.
can look at it, and so like people can kind of poke at it and see like maybe if there's any biases or things like within that model itself, or see how it if there's any issues with the model. So like that's where they say they open weights. It just means like there's different ways of how you can do a quote open source model. You can say like, hey, I created the model. Here's the framework. We're
Yeah.
not going to give you the data that we trained on, but we'll give you the weights. We'll give you the model that itself, like what was the final model after we trained it.
And
All of the numbers
that's after billions of
after
dollars
billions of
of
dollars. Right.
R&D. Yeah, wow. Wow.
So and then people can take that and they can fine tune those models, or they can kind of adapt those models and see, what it is. So there's like kind of different layers of open source, and they can give you what the model architecture is. They can give you the model weights, or they can give you all of that plus the information that it was used to train that model. That's like a completely open model.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
like Hugging Face and things like that, like those are other companies, open source companies that are trying to, really kind of push that and say like, hey, here's everything. Like if you want to recreate our model, go for it. It might
Wow.
cost you $1 million, but you can do it. Um, so that's that part. So talking
Yeah.
about the malicious part, that's a very real scenario. Like obviously you can say like people, if you can mimic a voice that sounds human, you can try to kind of, and you have something that's autonomous, you can call thousands or millions of people and try to swindle them out of their bank information. There's people already doing it now, but they're usually with real people, right? But if you have an AI, like, and they already have some information about you, they can kind of create this very easily scalable solution of phishing, or how all the
Right.
different kind of um, dangerous kind of combinations. There's that side. There's also just like using large language models to kind of create malware or things like that can be ever evolving. Like think of like an AI agent. You were saying like an AI agent that's malware that can kind of go in and change itself into the systems and kind of spread. I'm assuming we're going to probably see some kind of like large language based viruses, like computer
Ooh.
viruses that will kind of like so like there's applications I'm sure people are working on it, or they may already be out. We don't know, but there's going to be something that's going to be like that. And so like I think those are way more serious threats now than
Hmm.
the others. So definitely worried about those. Those will
Yeah.
probably come out in the next couple of years, because there's
Oh,
always
okay.
people looking to make money off those. And as that's one of the downsides of having everything open. Everything's open. People can take those and use it for threats, basically, for serious
Hmm.
threats. The is so I think those are interesting philosophical questions.
Sure.
I always think that the opposite thing is like if something becomes so intelligent and becomes this over intelligent being, and we're just a little nothing, like would they care? Would they really care about us? Or
Right.
would they like, you guys are idiots, I'm going to leave, and then they just go somewhere else? Like
Hmm.
that's the thing I always wonder, like would they really care to destroy us if they're so
Hmm.
smart and they know everything? Maybe there's this like gray gray period in between where they're like very smart, but they're just so smart that they think we're stupid and they want to get rid of us, and maybe they're not just like the overly super intelligence, and they don't know that they don't care or something. Like I don't know, it's like I just think like if they're that smart, they probably wouldn't care about us. They probably would think we are human, and we are, and they would just be like, you know what, cool, like let's go away.
Right.
I don't want anything to do with you because you guys seem to just
Suck.
make your own chaos. um,
Yeah. Cause you ever watched the movie Her?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like, spoiler, but like, yeah, there's a, So for those, I definitely anyone listening, please check out her. I really recommend. It's a good movie. We're gonna spoil it, but yeah, there's a part where she's in love with like 60 people or something, right?
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck, you know? Like it's like so then it started getting into this idea of like human norms may not apply to super intelligence, if that makes sense, right? So like, and then they were able to they were able to speak non-verbally, like on one AI, like she's basically an AI agent speaking to another AI agent, and they could do it at different non-verbal ways that's like beyond human comprehension. And then at the end, they're like, hey, peace, we're gonna go somewhere else, like, and I mean, your comment made me think of that, and I do wonder about that, like, there's so many different unknowns, and like there's so many things that we're not sure about, but I do think it would be prudent for us, as we are the creators of AI, right? Being a content writer, I have unknowingly trained AI, right? So I think as the progenitors of AI, I do think we need to find ways to, make it safe, make sure it's not malicious. I think with social media, I guess we try to do that, but it always seems to be a race. Even with like the recent Senate hearing with like Sam Altman, Lisa Su, and the guy from CoreWeaver and Microsoft, it always seems like it's a race, right? We always need a race and get ahead of China, get ahead of the world. But then like I always like, what about the safety side of it? Are people, checking to make sure these models are not malicious in any way? These hallucinations are not like causing kids to hurt themselves, stuff like that. I don't know. Those are some things I think about. As far as safety, is that something you think about when you're working with models or creating models, Matt?
It is. Unfortunately, I feel like it's human nature that we always want to push the boundary with,
Yeah.
taking the ramifications of what we do. It will probably bite us eventually.
Got it.
But I mean, I think there are people. There are definitely people who are very active and they're voicing their concerns about the safety of it.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I mean, I think there will be in the next couple of years, we'll kind of really start seeing if quote unquote whatever the safety measures that they have in place now are working. But I mean, I think there's some people that are really doing, like making sure that, there's always people who try to jailbreak the larger good model to say, to make it say stupid things or produce
Uh,
stupid stuff. But uh, the large corporations, I think they really do try to make it, at least the content that's being produced, relatively neutral in some
hmm.
degree, right? Now we're kind of seeing this shift where people are trying to not make it as neutral and make it for whatever reason,
Like sarcastic, like Monday,
not sarcastic, but just like unfiltered. They're trying to make
unfiltered.
less unfiltered. And I don't know if it's just because of the current administration and just like I think maybe Elon and using Grok and X, I think like they were really kind of pushing like we're going to make it not as filtered. I
Oh,
feel like now they've also kind of been a little more filtered. So it'll be interesting to see kind of which companies kind of tout themselves as being less filtered or more filtered
hmm.
and where we go from there. But again, as these models improve and maybe if it does become self-aware and it's going to blow past any kind of safety measures. So I don't know if necessarily safety measures is I think they're protecting us now, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to protect us later.
Got it.
Because yeah, as soon as it becomes quote unquote self-aware, I think any kind of safety measures will just
Go out the door.
go out the door.
Okay, scary times. Thank you so much for your time. I think Dan, did you have anything else before we end with like language corner? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's go to our segment, language corner. Yay! So with language corner, we like to share a phrase that we're learning in another language or in our current language that we find is pretty cool. For me, mine is Shinka is a Japanese. Chinese, it's 进化, and it means evolve or evolution. So the characters are like Xin means to improve, and Hua means like change. So improving change is means evolution. So I think that I felt like that might be pertinent to our conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you guys have?
Okay.
Yeah. What are you guys thinking about? Yeah.
Matt?
So I so I have a very completely random one. I don't know if it's been talked about before, but I have so my daughter's 6, and even before this was several years ago. Kids, they make up like random words. And when I was little, I think when we would kind of tease people, you'd go like neener, 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 or whatever. But she would always say like na 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 boo boo, and that was something I never heard about. And I always like thought about these like taunting kind of weird kid phrases that kind of come up. And I was like, oh, I wonder what kind of curious of what other languages kind of. I guess the na 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 na, which also I think I was kind of looking this up, is very similar to Ring Around the Rosie. Like it's like a
Ah,
6 note kind of thing, as na 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 na, not or na 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 or whatever. But I guess it's that phrase kind of does is around like other European nations or other European countries that they use that, but there's other countries that don't. So like I was kind of curious because like what other kind of ways that kids do create these kind of taunting things. And so one of them was Liro Liro Candelero, which is I guess in Spanish Portuguese, which sucks to be you. That's what I guess it stands for, which I thought was interesting. Um, and then so another one I thought too, which was I think in Japanese, and I don't know necessarily know how to pronounce it, but it was like so mimi, so mimi.
I'm not
I
sure.
saw it somewhere online. I'm not really sure,
What does
but
it
I
mean?
also so mimi, I think, or so mimi. I tried looking it up and I saw nothing, but I saw on one website that was talking about that was a chant. I was like,
Uh,
I have no idea. But apparently, na, like which I think is spelled like Nyah. I think that's like the um
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that is a cat sound in
in
Japanese.
Japanese, yeah, nya. So that's
So
why they have like nya coin or something, like a crypto or something, like it's a
like
cat coin. Yeah,
the
I don't
nan
promote
coin.
crypto. I'm just saying like that. Yeah, nya. Yeah.
Yeah. But I always just found it interesting because like as a kid you kind of come up with these phrases and you don't really know what they mean or where they come from, but they seem to kind of always evolve or come out even with kids that are now. And so I was just kind of interested in thinking about that. But yeah, na 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 boo boo is what my daughter says, and she's 6, and um,
Yeah.
she says that to me. And so I was like, yeah. So it's just interesting that not that word in particular, but there's other teasing words around different countries, and they have kind of similar cadences.
Huh.
Uh, and yeah, so
Where did your daughter learn that? Do you think? Yeah.
I don't know.
School.
I mean, I'm other kids, older kids probably.
Is
Yeah.
that they learn your kids learn a bunch of new words? I noticed. I remember you saying like baka,
Sasibaka.
sasi baka. That was one that we had for language corner before. Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, the new one that I learned was glazed.
glazed. What's
Yeah,
that?
that kid's glazed. That means that kid is favored by the teacher. It's like
Hmm.
basically teacher's pet. So that kid could do whatever they want, and the teacher will let him do it. So that kid's
Is that like a
glazed.
Gen Alpha term or what is it?
I guess. I mean, I'm still trying to get my head around skibbity toilet. Skibbity.
What's that?
It's just some sort of meme. I haven't really looked it up, but then skibbity by itself is like it's a little odd or something like that. That's
Yeah,
skibbity.
it all comes from like a YouTube
Yeah.
meme, the Skibidi toilet. Like, yeah, I think I've watched some of them. They're very interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
So
eh, yeah, and then one thing that's keeping you balanced, especially with like all this, changing times and stuff. I know for me, I ran a marathon recently, my first marathon. Yeah, that was. Have you ever
congrats.
run a marathon, Matt?
I have years and years and years ago. I
Okay,
ran the Long Beach Marathon. Yeah.
wow. Because you're. I know you're a sprinter, but yeah. But I just. How was your time, if I may ask? Yeah. Do you remember
So
or?
at that time, I was trying to qualify for Boston,
Oh wow.
which I think the times for Boston were like three at that time. It was like 3:15, so 3 hours and 15 minutes,
Oh
something like
shit.
that. Um, and a number of factors. It didn't end up working. I think I ended up getting to mile 20 and then I started cramping, so I had to kind of like run walk the rest. But I forget my time.
Okay.
Definitely not. Definitely did not qualify for Boston, but it was probably in the high 3 hours, probably.
That's still really, you're sub 4 though. Sub 4 hours. Yeah.
It might have been, or like roughly around four. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
So I'm embarrassed now, but mine was like 5 hours in like a couple of
You
minutes. Yeah.
finished. That doesn't
I
matter.
finished, yeah.
Yeah,
But I,
that's all
I, I
that
got the
matters.
same thing. I guess that's what happens. First marathon, you cramp, right? It's like it's not the cardio that's the issue, but it's like your equipment, your body joints that's get messed up. Yeah. So I finished, yeah, in five
Congrats.
hours, 10
That's great.
plus minutes. Yeah. And I did the run walk thing. But no, running has been good. That's been helping me kind of stay balanced recently. And trying to, I incorporate that with, I still do jujitsu and weightlifting. But I think the running aspect has been good. It's kind of meditative in a way. Like I noticed like that those last 5 miles where you're really hurting, I'm just like, I got to focus my cone of attention to like keep moving, or if I just like if I keep getting distracted about my pain and the environment, then I'll just like I feel like I'll fall apart. So that was interesting. Yeah. Anything you're doing now? What practice are you doing these days? Yeah.
I still run. Not as much as I used to. Still run
Sprinting, long
long
distance.
distance. I'm
Oh
usually
no.
doing like 20, 30-minute runs just around the
Nice.
neighborhood. I haven't done any like races in a while, but I just do it when I have time. So yeah, do that. That's probably like very similar to you. It's very meditating for me because I've just done it for so long. So I you get distracted. So it's like running, you're really doing kind of one thing. And
Yeah.
even though I'm just like listening to music, I can just kind of zone out a little bit and it's very meditating. So I do that. I still play soccer. So that's something that
Mm.
I've even when I was in track, I had friends from, you know, that were track friends or other random friends at UCSD that would play indoor soccer. So indoor soccer is not like the full field soccer. It's in like an indoor hockey rink kind of. So it's six people on each team. You have a goalie and then five people on the players, and it's kind of like arena soccer. So you can like kick it off the walls, and you basically try
Oh.
to kick it. So and then you can throw each other on the wall. So that's kind of like my aggression kind of outlet. So because it can kind of get pretty aggressive.
Wait, you can
But
you can push people into the walls or?
you're not supposed to, but if you're running full bore and trying to go for a ball, you're gonna get kind of pushed into the wall.
And it's padded,
Um,
I'm assuming, or
no, it's
no?
not. It's
Wow.
plastic, yeah.
That's cool.
Um, so I do that still as well. But those are probably like two big like any kind of physical activity is really what helps keep me grounded.
Right. AI can't do that yet.
Not yet, not
Yeah.
yet.
Damn, what have you been up to?
I just do a lot of work these days.
Okay. You still do
Nothing
kung
fun.
fu
Yeah,
forms? Yeah.
yeah, I do forms and I've been doing it with a 20-pound weight vest these days.
Nice.
Mm.
Yeah.
And like, do you feel like your cardio has improved from that and your strength or
No,
no?
I don't push myself as much as I used to. I
Okay.
just do enough to get like the sweat going and remember things. And then so right now I'm just trying to challenge myself to go remember some of the forms I haven't practiced in a while. So like the
Mm.
double broadsword, I'm gonna probably pick up the butterfly swords again and then and finish the horse bench again.
The horse what?
Horse bench?
What's that? Is that a form or just this
It's
horse
a form.
stance? Okay.
No, the horse bench is you'll probably see in the old Jackie Chan movies, but in the old cafes or whatever in Chinese kung fu movies, they sit outside. The seat is actually like a horse bench, like the kind of yeah. So I
Oh, like
had
this, and then it has like the two things
yeah,
on
four
this. Yeah,
legs.
four
Yeah.
like yeah, like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
flat, like a little plank. It's about yay wide and then this, actually this deep or whatever, and then really about 3 feet wide.
Okay.
It's very good for the core. And then I had a neighbor build me another one because I
Oh,
have one from a previous student who was a carpenter. It's
oh,
super nice. And I didn't want to slam that on the ground. So I had someone else make me another one that I could slam on the ground and I don't feel bad about.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've probably seen Jackie Chan like spin it and then hit someone
Yeah.
in the face with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys, this is a great talk. Thank you so much. I want to be respectful of your time, and I do appreciate that you've been so generous with your time and sharing
Yes.
all this
Great.
information with us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think.
hopefully it was, I had fun, so hopefully it
Oh,
was
good.
informative, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and maybe we can catch up in a few years and see if we're all replaced or not.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll just have our
Well,
AIs talking.
the AI agent podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye.
See.
Bye,
I'm
Dan.
gonna
Bye,
stop.
James.
Bye.